Welcome to another lesson. We're still in the module on detoxifying the sexual subconscious, and by now you've already created your timeline, mapping out experiences, memories, and moments related to your sexuality. Now, I want to help you gain a deeper understanding of what's happening in your mind. Let's clarify the role of our mind. We've already discussed that sexual experiences are stored in a deep part of the mind, linked to every moment lived, whether it's masturbation or some sensory stimulus. The mind has two basic functions: to keep you alive and to ensure the reproduction of the species. We must remember that we are animals, rational and spiritual beings. Regardless of your beliefs, we need to focus on the animalistic and rational aspects because sexual impotence is usually more related to these than to the spiritual realm. Let's understand this from an animalistic perspective. The brain's function is to ensure our survival and reproduction. There's an automatic mechanism in men to reproduce with women, which is essential for the continuity of the species. Speaking in an animalistic context, reproduction involves sexual interaction. This natural interest is driven by pheromones, hormones that trigger desire when we smell or touch someone. Evolution has instilled in us a strong sexual drive. Depending on the experiences you've had, your brain can learn that sex is either something very positive or, on the contrary, something dangerous. This happens when sexual relations generate fear. That fear usually arises after an experience of failure, like when you couldn't get an erection or you climax too quickly, leaving a bad atmosphere in the room. The first time this happens, your brain experiences a rush of cortisol and adrenaline, your heart races, and you feel uncomfortable. You realize that your partner or the person you're with might have noticed the failure, which can lead to worries about what they think or whether they'll tell someone else. The pressure to prove you're capable and the anxiety of not failing can make the situation even more stressful. This initial experience of failure can be caused by various factors: a tiring day, anxiety, worries, or insecurities. At that moment, the brain interprets the situation as a threat, and this perception of danger can lead to a cycle of fear and insecurity in future sexual encounters. You may have intended to have sex, but for some reason your body couldn't communicate properly to activate that instinctive reproductive state, and you ended up failing. From that failure, the fear and shame of it happening again arise. This fear turns into unconscious learning, and many men start to wonder, well, what if it happens again? To better understand, take a piece of paper and write down how it was the first time you faced this failure. Describe what happened. You may have gone through this situation more than once, mainly because of the fear of repeating the experience. Our mind doesn't distinguish well between imagination and reality. The brain doesn't know the difference. So what happens is that your brain starts predicting that the failure will happen again. To avoid this, it might prevent you from trying or even from getting an erection. This happens because the brain has already anticipated that the situation will be problematic and doesn't want you to go through that discomfort again. It begins to see sex as a threat. We humans have a deep fear of rejection. In the past, for our ancestors, being rejected meant being on the fringes of the group, which was synonymous with being vulnerable to disease, predators, and other threats. That's why we do everything we can to be accepted. If we're rejected, it's seen as a great danger. The brain then does everything possible to avoid rejection. When you fail, you might feel the rejection of the person beside you in a moment of vulnerability, which is the sexual act. There's an unconscious expectation, often fueled by pornography, that a man needs to perform exceptionally in bed, that he should last for hours, maintain a firm erection, and give his partner multiple orgasms. This idea comes from adult films. Try watching behind-the-scenes footage of a porn film to see the reality behind the cameras. Often, you'll see a sad scenario, with actors struggling to maintain an erection and the use of medications to help. The truth is, in real life, the situation is very different from what's portrayed in pornography. So, you need to understand this. Your mind was full of expectations. With a polluted sexual consciousness, you prepared to put on a show, but ended up failing. This creates emotional frustration that can be difficult to handle. At first, you might not even realize it, but then you start to feel bad, asking yourself, is this normal? Is something wrong with me? Will I ever be able to have quality sex again? This experience triggers a chemical reaction in your body that teaches your brain to avoid future sexual relations. The brain begins to see sex as something dangerous, something that could lead to rejection. And what do you do to ensure a sexual encounter? Many times you turn to Viagra, hoping it will work. You might even take it before leaving the house, trying to fix the situation. Sometimes the erection happens, but often it's due to a psychological placebo effect. You believe the pill will work, and that belief helps you perform. Within this process, we're going to cleanse the sexual subconscious so you can regain security and confidence. The goal is for your brain to start predicting that you will handle the situation, leading to a more pleasurable and intimate sexual experience. Instead of an experience focused on pornography, you'll have something more real, intimate, and instinctive. It will be an experience that comes from within, more natural. We have several techniques that we'll explore for this. First, you wrote about how it was the first time you failed and understood the relationship of fear in this process. Now we need to disarm this defense system with our hypnotherapy session. All right, everyone, now let's prepare for our practical process. So far, you've mapped out your sexual history, right? You've explored the good and bad moments and reflected on all of it. Just this reflection alone brings up a lot of emotions and thoughts. Now, I want you to clearly understand what hypnotherapy is and how it can help restore your sexual vitality and ensure automatic erections. It's normal to feel like you're afraid of having sex, but what's really happening is that on an unconscious level, you might be dealing with a fear relationship. You might think, Frederick, I'm not afraid of sex. But when the moment comes, things don't work as they should. This happens because on an unconscious level, there's a fear associated with sex. This fear, combined with anxiety, causes you to overthink and anticipate failure. Let's clarify what hypnotherapy is. If you think hypnosis is something that will control your mind, you're mistaken. Stage hypnosis, the kind we see on TV, is very different from hypnotherapy. In stage hypnosis, you see funny physical phenomena like someone tasting chocolate while eating an onion. But that's not what we do here. Hypnotherapy is focused on addressing your emotions and physiological mechanisms. It doesn't depend on any special susceptibility, and it works for everyone. It's about how our mind reacts to what we imagine, hear, and see. For example, when you masturbate while watching a video, your mind doesn't really distinguish between imagination and reality. You end up getting an erection just from the visual stimulus. Now, let's focus on making a change. Your past experiences are preventing you from having satisfying sexual relations. The goal is to shift that perception so that your brain focuses on what you want, not on what went wrong in the past. So here's the plan. I'm going to provide you with an audio to listen to 3 times a day. This audio will help reprogram your mind and start the detox process. Listen to it when you wake up, in the middle of the day, and before bed. Do this for a week. This is the first step of our method, detoxifying the sexual subconscious. After that, in Module 2, we'll awaken your more instinctive and animal side. But before we get there, we need to clear out the past. So use the audio, follow the instructions, and keep living your life. Practically speaking, grab your headphones, close your eyes for a few minutes, and listen to the audio. Don't worry about concentrating too hard or trying not to think of anything. Just listen and let your mind absorb the content. You might already start to feel a difference at this stage. We're going to use these important triggers to improve your erection and results. We're in this journey together, and with your commitment, you'll see changes. Let's move forward.